Let's talk psychological safety, shall we? Think about the last meeting where you had a genuine concern and you said absolutely nothing. Now imagine every single person in your organization doing the same thing, saying nothing every single week. That silence is costing you performance. It's costing pounds in people's pockets. We're going to talk about psychological safety. It's the shared belief that it's safe to take interpersonal risks at work, to admit mistakes, to ask questions, to disagree without being embarrassed, judged, punished for the things that you think and say. The most dangerous person in your organization isn't the loudest critic. It's the silent expert who has just stopped saying anything and speaking up. In this video, I'm going to show you the science behind psychological safety, how Google proved it works with data, and 3 things leaders can do this week to turn it on in their teams and in their culture. So, shall we? Let's go!
Okay, let's go.
If you're new here, I am Nick. I'm the culture doctor. I'm on a journey to become the world's leading expert in everything organizational culture, and I'm on a pretty cool, exciting PhD journey. So if you like what you hear, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your aunts, tell your uncles, tell everyone. Right. Well, look, let's get into it. So let's start with the researcher who put psychological safety well and truly on the map. That is Amy Edmondson. So she studied real life working teams. She looked at team structures, psychological safety, learning behaviors, and performance in different working environments. And she expected that the best teams would report fewer errors. But she found out something pretty weird, right? Some of the best teams were reporting more mistakes, not fewer. Now, here's the kicker, right? They weren't actually making more errors. They were just talking about them more. So no lying, no hiding, and no faking. When you control for factors and when teams have higher psychological safety, they show more learning behaviors. Things like asking for help, experimenting, and openly discussing errors. Those learning behaviors, they predict far better performance. And low-performing teams, they don't have fewer problems. They have fewer conversations about their problems. And that is exactly where psychological safety is at play. It's not about being nice. It's not about kind, fluff, and rainbows. It's about creating a culture where the truth can surface fast enough for us to actually do something about it. And Google found this out wonderfully with their wonderful project called Project Aristotle. I'll post the link to this in the chat. So let's get stuck into this organization that's been such a big part of our lives for so many years. Google ran a huge internal study, I mentioned it before, called Project Aristotle, to basically answer one question. What makes some teams consistently high performing and others not? So what they did, they analyzed hundreds of teams, dozens of variables. They looked at things like personality, seniority, location, working patterns, background, all of it, you name it. And the thing that stood out the most, you guessed it, it's the title of this video, psychological safety. It was the strongest predictor of team effectiveness. What they found throughout this project was psychologically safe teams were more productive, more innovative, they had lower turnover, and much higher sentiment, engagement, the attachment to the organization. So if your meetings are full of really smart people who keep quiet, you don't have a talent problem, you have a psychological safety problem. Let's talk about what psychological safety actually does when it comes to team performance and what happens. Because I want to keep this next part incredibly simple. So I'll talk about 3 levers, 3 big things that happen when psychological safety is present. So the first one, learning speed. Where there's teams who have high psychological safety, people actually talk about errors. They ask questions, they seek feedback, and that massively speeds up the learning and problem solving process. In high risk environments, things like healthcare, higher psychological safety is linked to better engagement in quality and improvement and safer patient care because staff are more willing to speak up about the risks and the issues. Second big lever, innovation, ideas. When people do not fear failure, When they don't feel ridicule or don't feel their career is going to be damaged for sharing a thought, they're more likely to offer bold ideas, challenge assumptions as they turn up. And that's exactly what Google saw in its high safety teams. More ideas, more idea generation, and much better problem solving. Third lever, straightforward, but retention, engagement improves. If you've got a high psychologically safe team, they report high morale and you see less top talent leaving your organization. Work feels less like walking on eggshells and more like a place where you can actually be a human and still have a career. That's what psychological safety does. It releases such a pressure valve in your mind. And it's not just some soft perk that we're offering here. It's fundamentally critical to your culture as an operating system, to learning, to innovation, and to sticking around the place, right? But let's debunk some myths on psychological safety, because I think it's important to share just as much as what psychological safety is what it isn't, right? Myth one, psychological safety means low standards. Nope. You can have really high standards and really high psychological safety. And in fact, that combination sets a really high bar. Safe to speak up drives the best possible performance. Myth number two, psychological safety means that everyone agrees with what you're saying. No, not true. Safe teams, they argue more, but they argue productively. There are sparks, there's energy, there's fire in it. People challenge ideas because they trust that what they're saying is not going to get punished just for the sake of disagreeing. And myth number three, psychological safety, it's a personality thing. So many people say this, it infuriates me. It's just because, that person's a bit quiet or they're introvert that they're not speaking up. Also, the same person will speak up in one team and shut down in another. It's not because of their personality. It's because the culture of those teams and if they're psychologically safe or not. Psychological safety isn't about making work comfortable. It's about making the truth tolerable, useful, and usable to improve how you act and lead in your organization. So speaking on leadership, I want to get into how leaders can create this. What can they actually do through their behaviors and how they show up for their team? So again, I love my rule of three simple behaviors leaders can do to model and insert psychological safety. So the first one is role modeling curiosity. Like leaders who coach, who admit they don't know what they're doing all the time, who invite input, who create conditions for people to share their thoughts. Practically, it sounds like, look, I might be missing something. What am I not saying? Or leaders might admit their mistakes by saying, look, I made a call last week. It didn't land well. Help me unpack it. What could I do differently next time? When you, as a leader, can say, do you know what? I might actually be wrong in this. Everyone feels safer saying, I don't know, or I made a mistake, because you're modeling that behavior, right? Number two, structure speaking up. Don't just invite it. That's lazy. If you just say, oh, look, everyone can come to me anytime. My door is always open. Look, it's not enough. You've got to engineer airtime. So in meetings, make sure everyone has a voice. Everyone speaks at least once before anyone speaks twice. Like use prompts like, what are we not talking about? What could we help facilitate in this moment? Leave the last 5 minutes as well for some positive discussion in every single meeting. So, right, what disagreements haven't we had yet? You can either assign someone to be a devil's advocate every meeting who challenges the status quo or the plan. It's really key. What that does, it sends a really clear signal that disagreement, it's not about disloyalty. It's just part of the job. It's part of the process. Behavior three, respond really skillfully when people take a risk. Taking a risk requires courage. So the moment that someone raises a concern, your reaction teaches the entire room whether it's actually safe or not. So if you get super defensive, you minimize it or you punish them, you've essentially just told everyone, don't you ever bring a problem to me ever again. And that's going to kill psychological safety. Instead, try something like, thank you for raising that. It's uncomfortable, but it's important. Let's talk about it. Let's address it. Let's talk about it like adults. Yeah. Let's slow down and let's understand this before we actually move on to the next thing. If you want psychological safety in your teams, in your organizations, do those three things. Admit your own fallibility, model it, engineer airtime for every single voice, and reward the people who bring bad news early. so you can genuinely carve out the time to fix the thing that's just been raised. Yeah. If you want to do a quick synopsis and understand how psychologically safe your teams are, I've got a quick test for you. A couple of questions, very straightforward. Just first thing that comes to your mind, maybe use some intuition, yes or no to these questions. Then you can sort of decipher the psychological safety levels. Number one, right? If I make a mistake on this team, it's held against me. Number two, can I bring up problems and tough issues without being shut down or labeled negative? Number three, people here genuinely value and use my unique skills and perspectives. Good one. And then number four, another question, final question to ask. Can I take a risk in this team? Like trying something new, challenging a decision. And when I do that, there's no feeling of insecurity and I don't feel embarrassed. Think about those things. I'll post them in the chat and the comments as well. Sorry. These questions really, really close to the ones that researchers and organizations like Google use to genuinely measure the levels of psychological safety in teams and in cultures. If your honest answer is no, or not really to more than one of those, don't try and fix your people. Please try and rewire the culture within your organization. Psychological safety is the invisible engine of performance. When it's missing, your smartest people vanish, and not from the company, but from the conversation. And that's even worse. So if you're a leader, pick one behavior this week, share a real mistake, run one meeting where everyone speaks once before someone else speaks twice, or publicly thank, praise, and reward someone who is actually challenging you or challenging the business or the status quo. And if you're watching this and thinking, our most important meetings do not feel safe at all, this is hitting, then share this video with the person who runs the meeting so you can educate them. Because if that room isn't safe, your strategy isn't safe, your culture isn't safe. I've been Nick. I'm going to see you next time. That, my friends, is what you need to know about psychological safety.
Okay, let's go.